Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Wish you all a happy and a prosperous new year. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says punishing hate speech. The article here is speaking about hate speech. It gives us an idea of what can be categorized as hate speech, what are the existing laws, what are the recommendations of the Law Commission of India, are the existing laws enough or should we add new provisions to the existing laws. Let us try and understand what is this hate speech all about as discussed under this article. First up, why are we discussing this? What is the context to this article? Recently, there was a religious conclave that happened in Haridwar where people from one community made inflammatory and provocative speeches against another community, which is why political thinkers and concerned citizens have categorized this hate speech where one community section of the people have put comments on the other section of the society. So let us try and understand what is this hate speech. Do we have a universal definition of hate speech? The answer is a clear cut no. Hate speech is subjective in nature, but according to Law Commission of India, in its 267th report, hate speech generally is an incitement to hatred, primarily against a group of persons defined in terms of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religious belief, and the similar ones where people from one section of the society make abusive statements about the other section of the society. Thus, hate speech is any word which is written or spoken, signs, visible representation within the hearing or sight of a person with an intention to cause fear or alarm or incitement to violence. This is a definition given by the Law Commission of India. So, can we say that this is a form of speech which is intended to vilify a particular community or section of the people, humiliate them, incite hatred against a section or a class of people? So, what is this hate speech? It is a form of speech which is detrimental to the society, and this can be communicated using words, symbols, writings, actions, signs, and representations, video, so on and so forth. So, in general, hate speech is nothing but a limitation on the free speech. We know from the fact that Article 19 is not absolute in nature, which means that Article 19 also has reasonable restrictions, and hate speech is a restriction on the free speech as well. Why do people give such hate speeches? There are different reasons for it. The reasons can be political belief. One section of the people might have one political belief. The other section of the society might have a political belief which is totally different in itself, or there are sections of the people who might have a political ideology. There might be people with a different political ideology. There is a mismatch in the political belief and an ideology, which is why one section of the political pundits start targeting the other section, leading to vilification and humiliation of a particular section of the society. So, on one side, what we see is a reflection of a person's political belief or a distaste for a particular section of the society. So, the first reason why there happens this hate speech is the idea of political belief. Hate speech can also be a product of lack of knowledge. Let's assume for a moment a person who does not have an idea about a particular religion, does not have an idea about a particular cultural practices, can also go about hurting the sentiments as well, can also bring in hatred towards a particular religion or a particular race as well, or towards a sexual orientation as well. So when a person does not have the knowledge, this can also lead to hate speech where the other community feels the hatred coming from a different section of the society. In fact, they may also lack knowledge about the relevant facts about a particular section or a group of people or a particular region as well, and that is how you see that lack of knowledge can also prompt such speeches in the present scenario. And when such speeches are made in the society, it endangers the cohesion of a democratic society. It violates the human dignity and human rights which are accorded to the citizens and people in a respective country, and the rule of law gets violated. As a result, it can lead to acts of violence, it can lead to acts of disturbing the social harmony, and ultimately, the peace and tranquility existing in the system will get violated because of such hate speeches. In the present context, because we have people making such hate speeches in India, what are the laws do we have? The article goes on to say that we have the Indian Penal Code, which primarily covers the hate speeches in India. The article focuses on two important sections. One happens to be section 153A of the Indian Penal Code. The other happens to be section 505 of the Indian Penal Code. What does section 153A of the Indian Penal Code speak about? It speaks about promoting enmity between two different groups on the grounds of religion, race, place of birth, residence, language, etc., and doing acts prejudicial to the maintenance of harmony. What does this mean? This means a person is writing an article on an online platform or via the print media, or he is also making inflammatory speeches using religion as a tool. People from one religion will be asked to hate another religion, or it can be because of the race as well, one race pitted against another race, or because of the place of birth, a person is born in a particular region, this person is asked to hate another person from a different state or from a different locality. It can be on the basis of residence, it can be on the basis of language as well, where one section of the people are targeted on the basis of language. So when people are targeted, they are made to pit against each other, when there is hatred that is brewing in the society on the basis of all these parameters, that is when section 153A of the Indian Penal Code can be enforced on that particular person. So whoever by words, either spoken or written, or by signs, or by visible representation, or otherwise promotes or attempts to promote on grounds of religion, race, place of birth, residence, language, caste or community, or any other ground whatsoever. So it is not just restricted to these attributes, but if there is anything else as well, if it is causing disharmony in the society where the existing peace is disturbed, in such a case, such a section can be invoked by the executive. Or if a person commits any act which is prejudicial to the maintenance of harmony between different religious, racial, language, or regional groups, or castes or communities, and which disturbs or is likely to disturb public tranquility, then 153A can be invoked. Or if there is a particular section of the people, these people are going together, they criminally intimidate another section of people, or they participate in such an activity where it can be used for criminal force, in such a case as well, section 153A of the Indian Penal Code can be invoked against such people. Do remember, when such invocation happens, they can be punished with 3 years imprisonment, and if it is committed in a place of worship or in a religious place, in such a situation 5 years of imprisonment would be awarded to such people. So basically, when there is enmity that is brewing because of a communal angle attached to it, or because of an inflammatory speech, section 153A of the Indian Penal Code can be immediately invoked to restrict the hate speech or put this person behind the bars, so that the law takes its action against this person. Added to this, we also have section 505 of the Indian Penal Code. It speaks about the statements conducing to public mischief. Whoever makes, publishes, or circulates any statement, rumor, or report with intent to cause, or which is likely to cause fear or alarm to the public or to any section of the public, whereby any person may be induced to commit an offense against the state or against the public tranquility, with an intent to incite, or which is likely to incite any class or community of persons to commit any offense against any class of community, such will be treated as public mischief. So basically, if people are giving that provocative speech, and if people are asked to take up arms against the state, that is against the government, or it is a particular condition where certain section of people take up arms against another section of the people, this will lead to violation of the basic human rights and the public tranquility In such a situation, Section 505 of the Indian Penal Code can be invoked and they shall be punished with imprisonment, which may extend up to 3 years, or with fine, or both as well. In order to overcome this issue, are the existing laws enough, or should we add more provisions to the Indian Penal Code? According to the Law Commission of India, it goes on to say that the existing laws are ambiguous in nature. So what we have to come up is with a new provision with the introduction of a new section, and that is section 153C as well as section 505A, says the Law Commission of India. It says we need to add a new section which is primarily focusing on the hate speech. Section 153 should make it an offense to anyone if he uses gravely threatening words, spoken or written or signs or visible representation with an intention to cause fear or alarm. Yes, we do have the existing laws, but there has to be new sections added primarily focusing on hate speech, says the Law Commission of India. It also proposes to criminalize words or display of writing or signs that are gravely threatening or derogatory within the hearing or sight of a person, causing fear or alarm with an intent to provoke the use of unlawful violence. So we have the existing laws, these are not enough, so bring in a new provision and ensure that they are focusing primarily on the hate speech, says the Law Commission of India. In fact, the same has also been supported by the Bezpura Committee and T.S. Vishwanathan Committee as well. This is not all. So on one side, you have the Law Commission, you have the Bezpura Committee, you have the T.K. Vishwanathan Committee, which is that additional provisions will have to be introduced into the Indian Penal Code, or changes will have to be in the existing laws. However, we have the Supreme Court of India in Pravasi Balai Sangathan versus the Union of India, says that we already have the existing laws in place, and all that we have to do is implement these laws as originally envisaged. So the court observed that the implementation of the existing laws would solve all the problems of hate speech to a greater extent. So there is no need for law, says the Supreme Court of India in Pravasi Balai Sangathan versus the Union of India. So what should we do? As of now, when you look into a country like India, it is a diverse country. There is a lot of diversity in India. We believe in the concept of unity in diversity. We have different backgrounds, we have different cultural milieus, and hate speech in itself will become a complex issue. So what are we supposed to do? We have one of the committees which is looking into the reforms in the criminal laws. We have the central government, it has appointed one of the committees. The committee is looking into bringing changes to the criminal laws. What are the criminal laws? We have the Indian Penal Code, we have the Code of the Criminal Procedure, we have the Evidence Act in place. These three together are the major foundational layers of the criminal justice system in India. So the committee which is currently looking into this criminal law system will in the near future will have to do a clear-cut analysis that should we add new laws, or are the existing laws enough. So basically the existing laws, if they have to be reformed, the same will have to be communicated by the committee for reforms in criminal laws, so that we are able to tackle the hate speech in India. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says, what will be the impact of China's border law? 23rd of October 2021. The Standing Committee of the National People's Congress adopted the People's Republic of China's first dedicated law, which was titled as Land Borders Law. So this Land Borders Law lays the emphasis on border protection and integration of the border areas. So what does this mean? That China is up with the law, and this law is for safeguarding the borders of China. Does this mean that this has special emphasis on India? No. This is a border law, which means it is uniformly applicable across the entire border area of China. China has borders with as many as 14 countries, so this law is equally applicable to all the countries in and around China, and at the same time the law is not meant specifically for the border with India. This law will be implemented from 1st of January 2022. It has about 62 articles in about 7 chapters. It covers border defense. It covers about immigration, border management and trade. So let us try and understand some of the important provisions under this land borders law. The first important provision is about delimitation and survey of land borders. The new law emphasizes that the People's Republic of China shall set a boundary markers. What are these boundary markers? This will clearly lay a structure of what is the border area of China. So this will be in communication with another country as well, and once these markers are laid, that will be the permanent border for China and another country. So basically it will be a marker which will be decided in agreement with the relevant neighboring countries. So basically it will put in a marker, it will identify geographical locations, and once these markers are laid, that territory will be the territory of China. That happens to be the delimitation and survey of land borders. Next, what we have is the management and defense of border areas. According to it, the People's Liberation Army and the Chinese People Armed Police Force are assigned with the responsibility of maintaining the security along the border areas. This also means that since they are given this responsibility, they have to coordinate with the local authorities and also combat illegal border crossings. So we have Article 22, which clearly goes on to say that the Chinese military will carry out border drills across the border areas. Then we have the development of the border region. What do we mean by it? It means that people in that particular area will be provided all the support so that they could build their houses. Infrastructure support will be provided in those areas. Villages will be developed as well, and at the same time they would also be given awareness and education about the patriotism of China as well. So basically it will solidify the sense of community of China, promote the spirit of China, and also ensure that citizens are an active participant when it comes to protecting the border areas. But why are we discussing about land borders law? That is because on December 30th, 2021, China has decided to give new names to places that are part of the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh. So Article 7 of this particular law calls for promoting border education at all levels of the government. So one of such development taking place under this law is renaming places which are part of India's Arunachal Pradesh. The names in the near future will be present as part of South Tibet, and whenever China is releasing a new official map, these Chinese documents in the near future will have these names where it will include these regions and will be part of official map of China. Is this the first time that such an issue is occurring? No. This had also happened in 2017 as well. We had the spiritual leader Dalai Lama who had entered into the state of Arunachal Pradesh. In response to his entry, we had the name change that was carried on by China in 6 places in Arunachal Pradesh. Now they have carried forward another exercise where they have changed 15 names in Arunachal Pradesh as part of South Tibet. Now the question is, why is China carrying this belligerent attitude? That is because it wants to prove, it wants to achieve the maximum territorial limit reached by the Qing Empire at its height. We know for the fact China has a belligerent attitude. It has issues with most of the countries in its border areas. It wants to picturize itself as a historical power, the greatest civilization, and according to the historical power, it continues to haunt many other countries as well. You have the 9 dash lines which is present where it caters to in the South China Sea, and similarly it goes on expanding its land borders because historically its king empire had vast expanse, but that cannot be applied in modern era, which China does not know. That is the first thing. Then we also have pressure tactics that are infused by China. When you look at China, it is part of the strategy to put pressure on India and keep the issue burning. On one side, you have issues in the northeastern part in Arunachal Pradesh. On the other side, you also have issues in the Ladakh region as well. So it is a constant endeavor of China to increase its border areas, continue incursions along the line of actual control, and also bring various measures to ensure unilateral legitimization as well. So this is a pressure tactics enforced by China. Added to it, it is also a retaliatory measure to forbid India from engaging directly or indirectly with Tibet. We have spiritual leader Dalai Lama, who is closely associated with Tibet, or whenever India takes up the idea of Tibet, that is when China wants to reimpose that this entire part of Arunachal Pradesh belongs to China, which is not right. This gives rise to a couple of concerns with respect to this issue. What are these concerns? We have one of the agreement on the political parameters and guiding principles for settlement of India-China border question in the year 2005. It has two major articles. One is Article 6. The other happens to be Article 7. Article 6 speaks about well-defined boundary. It speaks about identifying natural geographical features and to be mutually agreed upon both by India and China. And we also have Article 7 of this particular agreement, which speaks about border settlement, where the two sides shall safeguard due interest of their settled populations along the border areas. So any issue with respect to the borders will have to be mutually agreed upon. But in the present situation, what we are seeing is a unilateral move by China about renaming of those places which are part of India. So it means it is violating the existing agreement, and under the border village construction plan which came up in the year 2017, China is also building several villages along the border areas. If such a construction happens in the near future, what we will have is more number of people along the border areas, and this can also lead to conflict between the people across the border areas of Arunachal Pradesh. So what is the response of India in the present situation? It has said that Arunachal Pradesh has always been a part of India. It will be an integral part of India. Assigning invented names to places in the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh does not alter this, says India in response to this particular move. So what should India do in the near future? India should launch a formal complaint against China in the international organizations and ask China not to continue with its nefarious designs. India should revisit its border issues, consolidate its claims when it comes to the border areas, and also ensure that we increase the border infrastructure in this region and also provide infrastructure to the civilian population. Ensure that we organize tourist movements in this particular area, so that as much as China is constructing villages across the border areas, India will also have to do simultaneously, so that China does not dare to enter Arunachal Pradesh in the near future. So what we have to understand is that since we already have an agreement, and since this cannot be done unilaterally, what China has to do is to understand and speak to India in all these cases, and cannot take any decision unilaterally. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says, when will the new vaccines be available? The article here is speaking about new vaccines. We have the existing vaccines like the Covishield, we have the Covaxin, and there are possibilities that new vaccines will be introduced in India in the near future. The article here is speaking about two more vaccines given permission by the government of India. One happens to be the Corbevax, the other happens to be the Covovax, which is given permission by the government of India. So let us try and understand what are these vaccines. When it comes to Corbevax, it was developed by Hyderabad-based biopharmaceutical firm Biological E, the Baylor College of Medicine in the United States, and the US-based company called as Dynavax Technology. This Corbevax is what is known as a protein subunit vaccine. This basically means it contains a protein of the coronavirus, and the body becomes prepared to recognize and launch an immune response against the virus entering our body. This differs from vaccines like Covaxin, which contains the whole virus, but it is in an inactivated form. Now, when it comes to Covovax, the vaccine was developed by US-based company Novavax. It will be produced by Pune-based Serum Institute of India under the name Covovax. It is also a recombinant protein-based vaccine. To develop the vaccine, researchers selected a part of the genetic sequence of the virus that produces the spike protein. This sequence was then introduced into the baculoviruses, the pathogens that attack the insects. So remember, the difference between Corbevax is that instead of using the yeast, this vaccine currently goes on to use the baculoviruses. Why are we discussing this? That is because we have the Prime Minister of India who has recently made an announcement from January 3rd. We will also have 15 years, 16 years and 17 years who will also be provided the vaccination as well. So during this particular vaccination drive, which will be given for the 15 to the 17 years. Why? Because the 18 and above are already given the vaccines, 15 and 17 are still not given the vaccines. So these people would be administered with the vaccine, and the vaccine that would be administered is the Covaxin. Added to this, we have the healthcare workers, we also have the frontline workers, and those above 60 who have comorbidities who would also be given a third booster shot as well. So in this particular backdrop, there is another article which speaks about whether we have to give booster shots or not. What are the booster shots as of now? When you complete a cycle of vaccination, it means the two doses are given to the people. So there is dosage 1, and after a considerable period of time there is second dose, which means the vaccine cycle is completed for an individual. What is this booster shot? The third dosage or the extra dosage after the vaccine completion given to an individual is what is called as the booster shot. So basically, when you look into the booster shot, it is an additional shot that is given to an individual after he is taken 2 doses of vaccination. Why are booster shots important? That is because when you look into the various variants that are coming into picture, you have the Delta variant, you have the Omicron, you also had Alpha, so on and so forth. All this meant that as and when the virus replicates, it changes its structure, the existing vaccine may not work, because the vaccine might have been originally designed for an original virus, but because the virus changes, it changes its structure, which is why there is a necessity for the booster dose, so that the new structure is also taken into picture by the vaccine. So what is a booster vaccine? Basically, the third dosage given to an individual is what is called as the booster. Added to this, whenever there is a vaccine that is administered to an individual, after a considerable period of time, its limit, its efficiency may also drop as well, and at the same time the original vaccination has begun to wane over a time as well. So what we have to do is to give an additional booster shot. It might be a change in the structure in the vaccine, or it might be the same vaccine which can be given to an individual. So basically, a booster shot is one which will restore the vaccine efficiency, and at the same time it will also provide immunity to the people. It will be able to neutralize the viruses entering the body and would be able to provide immunity for a longer period of time. But what does this article speak about? This article currently goes on to say that when it comes to the booster shots, why should we give the booster shots? Do we have any evidence? If there are evidences, what are the evidences? Are there any studies conducted by the organizations? Are they study conducted by the World Health Organization, or is there any other body conducting such a survey? If there are surveys, then give out these surveys and only take up the booster shot is the main thing. If the booster shot is given, what if there are negative implications of the booster shot? What if there is ambiguity over the need for the booster shot? What if a person who is already vaccinated has enough antibodies that he is able to survive with, and this new booster shot could also have ill effects on the person? Since we do not have the evidence, since we do not have the numbers, since we do not have the clinical trials, since there is no World Health Organization data for all this, why go ahead with the booster shot is the second major concern. And added to all of this, when we do not have the vaccine effectiveness data from the national level or from the international level, no study and research being done, it is the people who will be vulnerable, and such vulnerability will be the major cause of panic, and people in the near future may not also take the vaccines on the first term, says this article. So basically, we have the Director General of ICMR, Dr. Balram Bhargava, who is also gone on to say, since there is no scientific evidence so far to support the need for a booster vaccine dose against COVID-19, we have to wait and watch, says this article. Apart from this, the article also makes a mention of molnupiravir. This happens to be a drug for those with mild and moderate disease and can also be administered as a pill. 13 companies in India are set to manufacture this drug, and it has been approved for use under emergency use as well. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. Should the laws relating to hate speech be made more stringent? Critically examine. Second question, why has Beijing renamed several places in Arunachal Pradesh? How should India respond? So please write all your answers on the comment section. Peer review. Do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. You can also visit our website and upload the image as well. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.